on in practice. So too was Franco Colapinto in the Alpine that doesn't have the upgrade, as Antonelli is asked, is the car okay? I didn't catch the second part of that message, Ant.
The car does seem to be okay, so he's checked with the team. They say that they've spotted no damage, but obviously if they check the underside of the car, I doubt it. But hopefully he's got away with that one. But you never know. It's very rare, Harry, for a car to go through at that speed, a gravel trap on the grass, as he rejoined the circuit and not sustain any damage at all.
Antonelli, yeah, still out there now on an outlap and having to rebuild. Piastri looked a little off his teammate and the kind of top 4 runners from practice earlier on. He's fastest of anybody in that first sector, looking to put his first time on the board. So too is Gabriel Bortoleto, who's behind him. Bortoleto, along with his Audi teammate, were both inside the top 10 a couple of hours ago. Let's see what Piastri has on offer for his first venture. It's a 1:13.1, joins his teammate by just over half a tenth of a second.
Yeah, Gasly's just popped up into P7 as well. Remember, he carries the one and only upgraded Alpine this weekend, so he carries that upgrade. His teammate Colapinto pops it into P12 for now. He's on the older aero package, so we do expect Gasly to have that slight advantage this weekend. Bortoleto again up into P5. He showed good speed all the way through FP1. Now let's take another look at this moment for Antonelli. Wow, he was so close to losing the rear completely and spinning right round and getting beached in the gravel.
Just lost the rear very weirdly.
Very weirdly for Kimi Antonelli, who bailed into the pit lane after that.
Well, the wind really has picked up since FP1. The temperatures have increased as well by around 7 degrees track temperature, air temp 1.5 degrees. So quite different conditions to what they're experiencing in FP1, and maybe that corner at turn 13 is one of the ones they have to watch out for.
This has got to count for Kimi Antonelli out there on that medium tyre, as they all are. Didn't get that first lap in, lost a huge chunk of time coming into the pit lane now, needing to get this lap on the board. And so far, looking set to sail through into SQ2, but a little bit of traffic from the Alpine in front. Down on time in the middle sector on his own time, but just a couple of corners left to go then. He'll be spat out round the final corner at turn 14. 18 degrees of banking, carry the speed to the line for Kimi Antonelli, and it's 7th fastest.
Yeah, he really did need a banker lap, and that's what he's just produced there. Russell as well in the sister Mercedes, P5, 4.5 tenths away. But that's the duty of all the drivers at this point that are in the machinery to get them through comfortably in this first elimination zone. You can see the drivers there from 17th down. Ocon, Stroll, Behrman, Bortoleto, Perez and Alonso all in there. Now, what's happened to Alonso actually?
Alonso should hopefully be sailing through if the upgrades work, and that might explain it.
Now, race directors say if you go off in the first corner, you should go all the way around that tarmac section, rejoin as he's done. But there was no way he was going to take that decision so early on to pick up that tarmac runoff earlier on. So yeah, that's the best that he could do basically. But he's out there again, and he's got to carry that probably quite heavily flat-spotted front right now through the rest of the shin.
Yeah, Alonso then making his way towards the left-hander of turn 10. Sainz is the man who is right on the bubble in 16th. It's the U suspects, the 2 Hasses, Stroll and the Aston Martin, and the 2 Cadillacs that currently find themselves facing elimination in this first part of sprint qualifying, and that looked a little bit dicey.
It really was. No rear end stability there for Stroll as he tried to get on power on the exit of turn 12. Alonso's on a better lap, but he's still 8.5 tenths away from that all-critical elimination zone.
And stays down in 18th, does Stroll. Here is the other Aston Martin that we pick up at turn 13. Hulkenberg's out there again as well. So too is Carlos Sainz, just starting a lap now. Let's see what Alonso's got. He'll get the benefit of a nice toe, but it's only enough for 21st.
I don't know why Alonso didn't open up the straight mode on the exit of the final corner there. I'm sure I didn't see the rear wing open as he headed towards the line for that one last time. So I think that's it for Fernando Alonso down in P21.
Let's see if anyone can improve late in the day. So far, though, we've got to be a shout-out to Liam Lawson, who's currently ahead of his teammate Max Verstappen, up inside the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda has just improved on his lap time. He's in the top 13, only a few tenths away from his teammate. Good lap from Esteban Ocon right at the end. Goes up to 14th for the Haas driver. Can Ollie Behrman join him? Lewis Hamilton decides he's done enough for SQ1, and he has. He's already through and into 4th. Colapinto's right on the bubble. Albon takes the flag in 15th. Behrman just misses out down in 17th in what he described as one of the slowest cars on the grid. Can anyone haul themselves up as the checkered flag is out? Liam Lawson improves even further up to 5th. He's knocked down by 1 though as Russell finds the fastest final sector. Carlos Sainz to try and join his teammate. No, he can't do it. Sainz out-qualified in sprint qualifying by Alex Albon, who progresses through. It's just the 2 Cadillacs now. Bottas improves his time, and only though 20th. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez has still got the majority of a lap here, so will he be able to try and, well, overhaul Alonso and maybe his teammate as well? But he's not going to sail through into SQ2, so Franco Colapinto takes the flag. He'll be safe. Both Alpines progressing through.
Unless Perez can pull out something incredible and quite unbelievable in Sector 3, I think you're absolutely right, Harry.
Then maybe that was a bit of a bold prediction, a bit too early, but here comes Sergio Perez to the line. The checkered flag is out. He does improve his time, but it's 21st. Fernando Alonso, 22nd and last, but I suspect all is not well without Aston Martin.
No, that lock-up that he sustained in turn 1, I think would have been giving him a real rough ride through the remainder of that session. So that was a shame for him. Also a shame for this man that we look back on, Carlos Sainz in the Williams, P18, not making it through. But it's good to see one of the Williams get through. Albon in P15. Colapinto was the last of the runners to just get through into the next knockout round. But Gasly in P10 with the upgraded Alpine, let's not forget, a much better lap from him. But still, Bortoletto, I'm impressed with that. The Audis, so that pace we saw in FP1, Harry, really, it was genuine, and they have that speed through the rest of the weekend.
I agree, impressive, but also Lawson. Yes, it's only SQ1, up in 6th, ahead of teammate Verstappen. That's mighty.
Good. Very, very mighty. Yeah, that's proof that he can just jump into a car, adapt very quickly. And I was really intrigued to see how Lawson was going to tackle this weekend. So far, a very different Liam Lawson to what we saw last time out in a Red Bull.
Certainly is. Let's just get a look at what happened to Lewis Hamilton. Bit of traffic.
I got
from
traffic,
the Red Bull.
Traffic. I got traffic, man. Someone was holding me up.
from the home side and the coaching staff.
For him, through 9, didn't use all the width on the way out, brings it nicely across here, chasing the front end. Look at how much understeer he's got in the car. And we saw that actually in free practice with Verstappen as well. A lot of understeer around that turn 10 left-hander leading on the back straight. So that's something for the team to look at and work on perhaps in this gap before SQ2. They will again go on a set of medium tyres. A little bit scrappy on the way out of the chicane. But on the whole, that looks to me like a driver who's gotten pretty comfortable pretty quickly with that Red Bull. I'm really pleased to see him going so well so early on. Let's see what happens when we get to SQ2. Back up to you, Harry.
Thanks, Kroon. Yeah, it's so impressive, wasn't it, from Liam Lawson? And we've got a comparison here between Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli. Talk us through this.
Well, this is the corner where Antonelli went off, so maybe he was being a little bit more tentative. He's the line in green, so as the speed decreases, the line drops to the bottom of the screen, and then as it increases, you're increasing the speed. So Leclerc on that one in purple, just carrying more speed in towards the apex of that penultimate corner where Antonelli had his off. So I think it's inevitable that Antonelli he had to do that banker, therefore had to carry less speed into that one. But obviously something of interest and something to maybe work on as the session progresses through SQ2 and then hopefully for his sake into SQ3, that final knockout round of qualifying. But it's never good, Harry, to have a mistake come so quickly in qualifying or at any point through the weekend, because it does drop you back a little bit. Your confidence takes a bit of a hit and you daren't make another mistake like that, and it just sort of sits in the back of your mind. It's a harsh reminder as to if you push too hard, this is what could happen.
Well, for Kimi Antonelli, he lives to fight another day through into SQ2, which is already underway at 8 minutes and 47 seconds. We've lost the other Haas, Oliver Behrman, Carlos Sainz's Williams, Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, the two Cadillacs of Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, along with the other Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. So 16 cars remain. Again, the slowest 6 will be eliminated come the end of the next 8.5 minutes. And in this session, again, medium tyres mandatory before we switch on to the soft tyre for SQ3. Esteban Ocon then, making his way to the start line to begin his lap towards turn 1. Ocon, who hasn't had the best of seasons, a lot of questions over his future, but actually full of smiles in the paddock. Good to be back, was Esteban Ocon on Thursday. Makes his way now through the left-hander of turn 3, one of the hugely banked corners here.
Oh, and he had a huge moment of oversteer as well on the exit of turn 3, and he used that line that I think Kroon spotted actually when he stood down there, seeing it with his own eyes, not through the cameras of the exit of turn 3. He mentioned that Ocon's taken a different line in towards turn 3, and I think it just caught him out on the exit there, Harry. So this lap is probably one to forget for him. He lost too much time over that exit curve.
Now, something of note that you've just seen flash up on your screens from race control, that turn 5 incident involving Verstappen and Hamilton is reviewed. No further investigation for impeding. We saw a glimpse of that at the end of SQ1, and it really was, and you put that quite bad blocking, but nothing coming of it.
It depends whether Hamilton was in fact on an in-lap or an out-lap, or whether he was indeed on a flying lap, as I thought, based on the message as well and the speed that Lewis caught, the speed delta between the two cars, and he did have to back out of it. So I need to do a bit more digging myself as to why they would have just turned a blind eye to that, but I'm sure with their extra telemetry and data that they have available with the stewards, I'm sure they have come to the right decision.
Another curious question we had from SQ1 was Fernando Alonso, who had a really big front right lock-up and ended up 22nd and last, despite putting in another fairly clean lap. Aston Martin have said that the straight line mode on the rear wing of Fernando's car was not working during that session.
Oh, that explains everything then. So as soon as you don't, I mean, there's only 2 zones on this track, but if you don't use it, it just hemorrhages your battery life. So the state of charge of your battery is just, you're having to, the whole reason why we have straight mode in these cars is to mitigate the drag to help the whole energy point of view. And you see there the Macarena wing, as they call it, on the Ferrari, doing its thing in the second of the two zones here at this track. And without that, you're just going to be punching even more of a hole through the air and using valuable battery energy to do just that. So no wonder Fernando didn't have a hope in getting through there.
No, that's a shame for Aston Martin and Alonso, who looked quick in practice earlier on, but both Alonso and Stroll out. Right, let's focus then on the final 5.5 minutes of SQ2 as the quick laps start to ramp up. Lando Norris, we ride on board with the reigning world champion, fastest of anybody through the first two sectors. His teammate Piastri out there as well, as does Norris go a little bit deep.
Yeah, a little bit wide.
Chicane.
Yeah, he just sort of outbraked himself a little bit, as we expect. I think the tailwind is pushing them on, Harry, through into 11, and then the same trajectory into 13 as well, as Karun just spotted on the sky pad. I think with Antonelli from the first knockout round, and Norris does improve his time, but Piastri on a faster first sector, but really lights up the rear of the car on the exit of turn 9.
Yeah, and is looking good through those first two sectors, through the left-hander of turn 12. Antonelli also out there on a first out lap. Charles Leclerc will watch for him as well, along with Lewis Hamilton, who are both looking quick. Fine margins between Charles Leclerc and currently Lando Norris through the middle sector. Piastri will cross the line, though, and find nearly half a second.
Yeah, that's that mistake of Norris, so that's what it cost him, a good 3 to 4 tenths. And here comes Leclerc.
Gets a bit of a toe, perhaps, from Kimi Antonelli as well. Leclerc crosses the line and a little bit away, just over a tenth and a half from Piastri, slots into second. Lewis Hamilton next to the line in the Ferrari, puts it up into third.
Yeah, he started very strongly in free practice 1 and looking quick at this circuit. It's a circuit Lewis obviously enjoys, as does this man here, Max Verstappen, 7.5 tenths away at the moment. But Leclerc seems like he's getting into the groove around this circuit, and it's now down to Lewis to try and just eat into that gap, that deficit that he carries. Liam Lawson still fighting the car, but I think the front end more than anything around turn 12. A lot of understeer, but driving very well.
Liam Lawson, the Kiwi, usually down at Racing Bulls, 9th in the Drivers' Championship as it stands, has hopped up the chain to Red Bull for this weekend in place of Isaac Hadjar. Really good SQ1, finished ahead of Verstappen, slots him just behind him on that first run in 6th spot.
Yeah, just 4 tenths down now against his teammate Max Verstappen, so I think Verstappen getting into his groove as Antonelli and Russell, the two Mercedes drivers, are on their push laps. Antonelli, yeah, decent enough lap, but still behind the two Ferraris. What can Russell do?
George Russell will be looking for a fresh start in this second half of the season. He comes across the line in third, couple of tenths clear of his teammate Kimi Antonelli. When it comes to sprint races, well, Russell this year, they seem to favour him. 2 poles, China and Canada, and the same, converting them into victories as well. Only Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton are the other drivers in the field who have snatched sprint poles so far this year.
Now, Tsunoda, as we watch on screen now, he's an interesting one because obviously it's the first time he's driven not just this car, but this generation of car in anger. So he's got a lot to learn, an absolutely almost vertical learning curve that he's on this weekend. But he's got through out of that SQ1 elimination zone. Interestingly, the team decided to only run him on the medium tyres in FP1. So I think they're either trying to save tyres for tomorrow, or they just had a realistic approach to, let's just give you a feel for the car on the medium tyres, because that's where we're going to probably spend our time. We might not get through, therefore, into SQ3. That's how I read into it in FP1, maybe a bit of a pessimistic outlook, but I think, you know, the different tyres do throw a different balance at you sometimes, and the different warm-up quality and thing like that. So as a driver, you want to simplify things as much as possible and give yourself the best chance to understand the equipment under you.
It seems Red Bull and Racing Bulls are taking things pretty realistically, treating this as almost a box standard weekend where you can slowly bed in over an FP1, 2 and 3. We obviously don't have practice 2 and 3. Instead, we have a sprint qualifying and a sprint race, but the big points are handed out on Sunday, and that's where you're really rewarded. So we'll see how far the likes of Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson can get themselves up the chain Audi are the other team that have really been catching the eyes so far. Everyone having to do a double take with both cars inside the top 10, performing well on, crucially, that medium tyre. And Bortoleto and Hulkenberg, Bortoleto flying across the line up into 8th, fastest in the final sector.
Really impressive from the Audis, and this pace is genuine. They're carrying it through into SQ2 as well, and that's going to really upset the midfield teams, I feel. They were the talk of the paddock last time out in Budapest, the Hungaroring, and I feel like we're seeing even more progression from them this time out. No upgrades on their car, it's just to feel this track suiting their car even more.
Right, closing stages of SQ2 then. Hulkenberg is not improving compared to his teammate Bortoleto. Piastri is currently the fastest time at the moment. An upgraded Alpine for Pierre Gasly slots up into 7th. That puts Colapinto down and out in 11th. He's in the pit lane. He won't get another go at this. Tsunoda is out there along with his teammate Arvid Lindblad, both coming into the final sector now. Lindblad is up to get himself through into SQ3. Can he hold on to it? Yuki Tsunoda in his first competitive qualifying session 2, personal best in the middle sector. Tsunoda just misses out by 9,000ths of a second, but that is still a very worthy lap time from the Japanese racer. What about his teammate Arvid Lindblad? Yes, one Racing Bulls goes through into SQ3 at the expense of Liam Lawson, who sadly will not get another go at it in the Red Bull. So it's only one Red Bull in the final part of sprint qualifying and one Racing Bulls, but for Liam Lawson to only just miss out in his return to Red Bull, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I think you can take a lot of heart from today.
Yeah, 4/10 away from Verstappen. I think that's a job well done for him, and it was always going to be difficult for both himself and Yuki Tsunoda. And look at them, 11th and 12th. I think that's pretty respectable, considering this is a sprint weekend. You know, the one practice session straight in to qualifying in cars they've never driven before. I think don't underestimate the challenge that these guys have had to go through of all circuits.
No idea
this one.
what happened in Q2.
Well, we had a lot of understeer that he was battling. That's what I could see every time he rode on board. He was really having to fight that car to try to make it turn. And yeah, it's a confidence thing as well. And Verstappen obviously can wring the car's neck, get more out of it, and work his magic. But you know what? If I was jumping into a car that I'd never driven before and I was only 4/10 away from Verstappen around here, I'd be pretty pleased with that.
I would happily take that and run. Good efforts from Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, but they're both out along with Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Ocon and Alex Albon down in 16th.
Ah, come on, boys. Well done. Thank you.
Come on, boys. Well done.
Thank you.
Come on, boys, well done. Thank you.
Good effort from Arvid Lindblad, the British rookie, in his first time here in Zandvoort, who sails through into SQ3, looking for get his second top 10 starts for a sprint race. Also sailing through into the final part of sprint qualifying was Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, and all weekend long we're joined from the Alpine pit wall, their managing director, Steve Nielsen. Steve, thanks so much for your time. It looks like those upgrades on Gasly's car seem to be working.
Yeah, we're pretty pleased. It's the first time we've got through to the third part of quali, I think maybe since Monaco or something like that. So yeah, the upgrades on Pierre's car look to be good. We obviously need to get them on Franco's car for the next race, because it looks like that's the difference between them.
So, Steve, sorry, it's Anthony here alongside Harry. So you think that that is a genuine difference between the aero packages, around 7/10? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, how much of that is the difference between perhaps driving technique and aero, but it's a chunky upgrade, yeah.
Steve, then one final part of sprint qualifying. How do you tackle this? What's the strategy for this part of qualifying for you?
SQ3 is maximum attack. You know, we've seen some teams do prep laps and so on. Prep lap didn't really do much for us, second lap, so we much as we've just done an SQ2, it'll just be one lap attack.
And do you feel more confident on the softer tyre or the medium tyre? Where do you think, so far from the limited data pool you have, where do you feel more comfortable?
Well, I'm going fast on the softer. The trouble is everyone else gets to use it as well. Yeah, I mean,
but does it change the balance of the car, though, in changing compounds?
The drivers haven't talked about it, honestly. We obviously see a difference in lap time, but they haven't said that the car changes that much, medium to soft, no.
Last one from me, Steve. Have you got a forecast of where you might end up? Obviously, at the end of that, Gasly ahead of Verstappen. I imagine Lindblad and Bortoletto, the Racing Bulls and the Audi are your main competitive targets.
Yeah, obviously Racing Bull is our big fight at the moment. I don't like forecasts, because whenever I do it, they go wrong. So we'll do our best, and hopefully we'll shake out ahead of Racing Bulls.
Right, nearly had you. All right, Steve, thanks so much for your time. Steve Nielsen, Alpine Managing Director, who will be with us throughout the duration of the weekend.
Wouldn't make a very good weatherman, would he? Sitting on the fence way too much with his forecasts.
No, but clearly that Alpine upgrade, though, doing the job. And I was chatting with Steve on Thursday, and he said, you know, this is part and parcel of Formula One. We've been a bit lax with our upgrades. We've been working on to try and bring them. Racing Bulls have brought consistent upgrades. Now it's our turn to fight back, and we'll see this ebb and flow, particularly in that midfield battle.
Well, we heard James Allison say this very thing at the Saliers. You know, you either wait and you bring a very potent upgrade, or you bring them in a bit more of a drip feed process and maybe think after you've made the parts, because obviously it's you know, they're in the pipeline a long time. It takes a while to turn these things around and make new parts in Formula 1. And you might say bring a new front wing end plate design, for example, looking at the front wing here on the Red Bull, and you might go, oh, if we just had a little bit more time on that, instead of finding 0.2 of a tenth, we could have found maybe a good tenth's worth just from the front wing design. But obviously you need more time for that. And that's the fascination of the upgrades, at least for me anyway, and the different teams' approaches. We've seen Ferrari and maybe McLaren bringing smaller upgrades, but nearly every race we're seeing that drip feed that I talked about. But yeah, interesting to hear from Steve there saying that they've gone for the waiting game and bring a huge, sizable upgrade of a round. Let's just say, it's got to be at least 5/10, doesn't it?
Yeah, at least.
Even if you said the difference of the drivers may be, like he alluded to there, maybe that's 2-3 tenths perhaps at best. But yeah, to state that it is a big upgrade, we were expecting this kind of difference. Wow, it just goes to show what time can do for you in that upgrades arms race this year.
Yeah, and they certainly need to bring them, though. As Steve was mentioning, they are embroiled in a big fight with Racing Bulls. They've actually lost ground, so they are now 6th, 5 points behind Racing Bulls in the Constructors' Championship. So yes, they're not battling for titles, but that is a huge amount of prize money and testing time when it comes to next year as well.
I know we always say this, Harry, but I'd just love to see Verstappen in the racing balls. I'd love to
just to see.
Like, is it him? Is it the car? Because the racing balls just seem such a benign racing car. You can take it anywhere, any condition, and it just seems so drivable. Rookie drivers jump in it and they're fast straight away, and I think that's all part of their philosophy and the design of that car to make it easier for rookie drivers in particular. But I'd still love to see this guy in the racing balls, just see what he can do in it, because I think it's obviously a very handy racing car.
I wonder if there's a clause in his newly signed contract where that could happen. We'll have to ask Max and Laura Mekies later on this weekend. But just a reminder, while we wait for anyone to head out onto the track, Lawson out from SQ2 in 11th, along with Yuki Tsunoda, but a valiant effort from the Japanese driver as well, subbing in for Lawson last minute in the racing balls. Colapinto down in 13th, Hulkenberg 14th, Ocon in the Haas, who I think will actually be fairly pleased with that qualifying ahead of his teammate, and Alex Albon couldn't progress any further than 16th. As we get a bit of action from McLaren in the form of Lando Norris, who peels out of the pit of his garage and into the pit lane, followed by the Mercedes and the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
So how do you handle your prep lap? Do you do the 2 cool laps or warm-up laps, as Steve Nielsen was talking about? We've seen some teams go that route in FP1 when they had the soft tyre on, or do you just gun it straight away and get the best juice from these new tyres, albeit them a little bit cooler than you might want? So that could come into play here as well.
Lando Norris in the McLaren, both McLarens looking quick, actually, must be said. Oscar Piastri was the one who finished SQ2 on top, and it's going to be a really quick ending to this sprint qualifying, I think, as they try and find themselves a bit of space by slowing down as they head out of the pit lane. Just over 3.5 minutes remain. It's a 4.2 kilometer circuit, 14 turns, 10 that go to the right and 4 that head to the left. Huge undulations over 8 meters of elevation and hugely steeped corners as well. You've got the banking of 19 degrees down at turn 3 and the banking around the final corner at 18 degrees at its absolute peak, which is where Lando Norris makes his way now.
So let's see what Lando Norris can do here. Piastri had a great run in SQ2. What can Norris do as he tackles turn 1, middle of the road through there, use the banking? It's not quite as severe as turn 3 that's coming up after this flick of turn 2. Get the car back over to the right-hand side to open up and run that banked corner like I talked about, all the way around the outside to propel you and slingshot you onto this uphill winding straight. He's actually choosing this as another warm-up lap, moving around. That's a sure sign that he's not happy with the front tyre, at least. He's not quite there for him yet.
No, for Lando Norris, still pushing to a certain extent, but we saw the soft tyre in practice earlier, able to hold up for a couple of laps and choosing to still get a lap time on the board. Antonelli and Russell both out there, but slower than Norris through the first sector, and there it is, clear as day, still trying to get those tyres up to temperature.
So another, quite a fast prep lap, actually. It caught me out in turn 1 through to turn 3. And then when I saw him weaving around or exaggerating the kinks of turns 5 and 6 as he headed up the hill. But now I believe he'll be on his proper quali attack lap.
Lando Norris into Tarzan then, turn 1, looking for his second sprint pole of the season, following up his adventures in Miami. Gets it turned in, little twitch on the front end, through the banking of turn 3. He's got an Alpine of Pierre Gasly in front of him. Does Gasly see him? Yes, he does. Blue flags wave. Norris carries the speed through and up over turn 6 and 7.
Yeah, and downhill into this very fast right-hand corner of Skyflock. And then turn 8 comes at you very quickly. Use all the curb on the outside, bring the car back to the apex of turn 8. And these 2 very tricky corners, get the car to the outside before turn 9, where you get understeer initially, and then sometimes, like there, small example of the snap of oversteer that you often get. Then you can go over the brow of the hill before turn 11, the right, and then into the dip of turn 12, where the car painfully understeers momentarily, then back on the throttle before the penultimate corner of 13. Get on power as soon as you can, because that sends you through this flat-out banked corner of turn 14. Then you come to the line. What's it going to be for Norris?
It's a good lap from Lando Norris. It's a 1:11.608, but Kimi Antonelli was flying and going quicker through the first two sectors, but now George Russell in the other Mercedes is fastest of anybody through that first sector. Piastri's had a decent run as well through the first two sectors. Antonelli to the line. He cannot pit Lando Norris to sprint pole, who holds it provisionally. But what about George Russell looking for his third sprint pole of the season, and he's got it, but can he hold on? Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton all still to cross the line. Charles Leclerc cannot deny him. Leclerc in the Ferrari up to third. What about Oscar Piastri? It's only fourth, less than a tenth away. Verstappen's still out there as well, but he's over 2/10 of drift through the middle sector. Lewis Hamilton now out of the final corner to the line. Can he get close? No, he cannot. Max Verstappen's still out there, but is losing time. It is looking good for George Russell to take his third sprint pole of the season. Where can Verstappen go? He puts his Red Bull in sixth. He splits Antonelli and Hamilton with Bortoletto and Lindblad in 8th and 9th. Pierre Gasly might have something to say about that, though, as he crosses the line. He does, and he pips them both to the post. Gasly 8th, ahead of Bortoletto and Lindblad. But what about this man, George Russell, on sprint pole, ahead of the Dutch sprint.
Nice one.
Beautiful.
Must be a bit lighter off the engagement ring.
He was feeling much more cool, calm and relaxed. He was having a bit of fun in the press conference on Thursday. His personal life is going well, and right now the second half of the season on track has started beautifully for George Russell.
Yeah, I'd love to see that happen, and I'm sure we will very soon, because I thought that Lando drove an excellent lap there. Surprised by Kimi, and I still think that off that he had in turn 13 may be carrying a little bit of damage to the car perhaps, but also that slight knock of confidence he might have felt from that early mistake. But must have been a brilliant lap from George Russell, and like you said, that summer break has served him well. Maybe that engagement ring has put a little bit more of a forward weight distribution into the car. Really clutching at straws here.
Race control want to take a look at that, I think, as he pulls in to Parc Fermé, and we'll be pleased with that. Of course, no points handed out today. He'll have to get the job done on Saturday morning. 8 points up for grabs for the sprint victory. George Russell then celebrating. Russell takes pole ahead of the Dutch sprint, ahead of Lando Norris for McLaren and Charles Leclerc in third. It's three different teams completing the top three places.
What a challenge for the drivers, stepping in just that one practice session straight into qualifying in the afternoon, and they can all probably appreciate the job that Russell's managed to do there. Antonelli's not far away, but yeah, I think it's going to be a very close sprint race tomorrow. Antonelli, I think, I think he's still probably thinking, that was a close one. Turn 13, I very easily could have ended up backwards there, so a lucky boy in that moment.
Norris and Verstappen continue their perfect record against their teammates in sprint qualifying this year, 5-0 against both of their teammates, whoever they may be. Max Verstappen down in sixth on a weekend where Red Bull have been left wanting a tad. Just the one Red Bull inside the top 10. Liam Lawson just missing out. In that midfield pack, Pierre Gasly in a hugely upgraded Alpine, getting the job done in 8th, ahead of Gabriel Bortoletto and Arvid Lindblad. There's a nice fight there in the midfield to be had too.
It really is. I think Alpine will be pretty relieved about and happy with the progress they've made on the aero side of their car. Great lap by Gasly, good effort by the team. But Bortoleto delivered on the promise as well that he's shown all the way through today with Audi. And like you say, Harry, that midfield fight is definitely one to watch through the remainder of this weekend.
Well, the Orange Army didn't quite get what they wanted today. There is still Saturday and Sunday to come, though, and with mixed conditions, who knows what happen. But let's hear from our sprint pole sitter and down to Park
Well, we are fresh off the back of the summer break. George Russell, this is your third sprint pole. Congratulations. How are you feeling in this moment?
Yeah, it's great to be back here after the break. It's a circuit I really love and needs a lot of commitment. And yeah, it was obviously a tough end to the first half of the year. We're really happy to come back. It's been a little while since I've done one of these interviews, so yeah, it was nice.
Well, we're glad to see you back up here. As you say, it's a circuit that requires a lot of commitment. It's tough to put it all together. Just how was it out there in conditions?
The lap felt really good, to be honest. It was, it all came together nicely. It's always difficult, these sprint qualifyings, when you just got one shot on the soft tyre. The track